He's the most renowned strategy guru of our times, Michael Porter, a very precious guest, sparing a few minutes of his time here on his India visit to talk to Bloomberg Quint. Professor Porter, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
So much has changed in business since you first set down the first principles of competitive strategy. When you look at the business environment today, do you believe they still hold firm, or do you see need for adaptation? How do you assess what's going on?
Yeah. Well, my work really has focused on what I would call the underlying fundamental drivers of, say, industry structure or how to think about competitive positioning. But of course, the opportunities and the technology is constantly changing. But what I find is the same fundamental framework applies. You still have to have a competitive advantage. The way you get competitive advantage involves sort of a set of concepts about what a strategy looks like. The opportunities are constantly changing, the needs are changing, the consumer segments are changing, everything's always changing, but the ultimate principles never change. And I remember when the internet came along, everybody said, well, the internet just changes everything. And all the traditional ideas about strategy and competition don't apply anymore. And there was all these internet companies that were, growing and having big market valuations and so forth. Well, it turned out that, most of those companies failed. And actually they had to live by the old rules. You have to make a profit. You have to be able to sustain your profit. You have to have some sustainable advantage. Your competitive structure of your industry matters. So I think what I always have tried to do is work at the level of the underlying principle, not describe the current phenomena. And so much of the writing in business is just about what's going on now. And I think managers really, are hungry for some of the underlying fundamentals. So with any luck, I won't have to retract any of my earlier work. It'll stand the test of time.
How do you assess the time or era of technology that we live in, the rate of speed of change in technology, which is something that we haven't seen, till the last 10, 15 years, and importantly also, the influx of tremendous amounts of information and data, that businesses and their managers are facing today. And in that environment, to make decisions based on the first principles that you set out, to identify your business's competitive strategy in this environment, possibly has become more challenging, would you say?
Well, I don't know if we can evaluate whether it's more challenging or less challenging. You're absolutely right that I think, there's always been a lot of change in society, and at any era we're always saying how fast change is for our time than the previous time.
Okay.
And this has gone on, probably for centuries. But, if you look at the actual data on the amount of innovation and the amount of knowledge created, it's exponentially growing now. And part of that is because we're able to store it and capture it and transmit it better. It's not changing the need to have a competitive advantage. It's not changing the need to think about your industry, but it is changing the tools and the data and the visibility that we have. And so I think what the defining characteristic of today's technological development is, as you said, is data. We now have visibility and data in real time on things that we've never known before. I think that means we have to raise our bar in terms of the rigor and the discipline with which we make a lot of traditional strategic choices like customer segmentation and kind of meeting customer needs. We have so much more visibility now that we can be much more rigorous about that. We can do a better job. We can continually adapt products as the customer adapts. We can really understand how customers use our product, whereas before we just were guessing. We never really had any data. So I think this new data and the flexibility that it has created and the ability to integrate really the data and the products into a common platform is sort of raising the bar on the rigor and discipline. And I think every company is going to have to learn some new skills. And this is early stage. We're just learning how to do this. And we're going to see every industry in some way. We're going to run hospitals differently. We're going to run restaurants differently. We're going to run auto companies differently. And I think this is still early stage, this revolution of digital, smart, connected products.
Okay, is there anything like too much data? And I have a follow-up question to that. When you look at the business landscape today, what companies stand out to you? Are they the Facebooks and the Googles of the world, the Teslas of the world? Is it innovation that you think is becoming now the competitive strategy entirely?
Well, I think is there too much data? If you analyze data in historical ways, there's too much. I mean, you're just drowning in it. And so I think what we're learning how to do is we're building a whole new set of ways of storing data and data analytics to kind of make sense out of all the data. And that is one of the cutting edge skill sets that most every company needs more of right now.
Right.
The data's coming in, but making sense of it is not easy. There's so much of it. Part of it is just figuring out what's relevant and what's not so interesting. In terms of who's really innovating, I think the social media companies, the companies that became the vanguard of this era, or at least part of the era, like your Facebooks, I think those companies are what I would call more platform companies. They're providing these cloud platforms, and they're combining these new aggregations of data and ways of communicating. But I think in a way they're not innovating anymore. They're just getting bigger and bigger, and they're playing a bigger and bigger role in marketing and advertising. And it'll be interesting to see how truly sustainable some of the social media companies are. There's only so much time in the day, and there's only so many sites you can go on, and there's only so many friend posts you can look at, and so eventually I think we're going to sort out and winnow down a little bit the social media phenomena. It's not going to. It's important. It's here to stay, but it's not going to define everything. I think the innovators to me are less the social media companies. I think we've created every different kind of social media you can think of, and I'm not sure we need more. We went from Facebook to Snapchat to Twitter to this to that, and we're slicing and dicing, and the incremental improvements are getting
more incremental.
More incremental.
Okay.
But I think the real innovation is how companies are taking on board this phenomenal data and analytical capability to really transform how we do business. And so you mentioned Tesla. I think Tesla is really quite remarkable because they have been able to change almost everything about being a car company. And part of it was easier because they were all electric, which simplified the job a little bit. But they changed they changed the whole role with dealerships. And in terms of the sort of break and fix model of service, a lot of the repairs that they do are online, and you don't even know it's happening. And they can keep improving their car even after it's been produced. And so there's been a lot of innovation in Tesla, and I think they realized that the battery was a critical constraint. It was kind of like a key input, and so rather than just say, oh, I can only do what I can do with the established battery producers, they said, okay, that's so strategic to us, we got to get into that business. So I think I would classify them as one of the true innovators. There are many others that are really turning businesses inside out using the new technology in ways that are really accretive and valuable to the customers. So I think we're going to see a lot of fascinating, interesting, novel, creative stuff happening. So it's kind of a fun time to be, in business, looking at business, analyzing business, interpreting business.
When has it not been? But I must ask you, if Tesla is one of the companies you admire is a strong word, but you think has done a great job of innovation, I'm sure every single viewer out there is keen to know which companies feature on Michael Porter's list of companies that he thinks are on the leading edge of innovation or competitive strategy, or have done a fabulous job of building themselves out.
Well, there's a lot of great companies, and right now, some of the companies that I admire the most are companies like Tesla that are figuring out how to really take advantage and bring to life the new digital ways of operating. So I put them on the list. You know, we have a new list in Fortune of the companies changing the world, and those are companies that have embodied the shared value framework in terms of seeing that the social impact is actually the greatest current driver of growth and innovation and competitive advantage, which is sort of crazy if you think about, you know, social being key to business. You know, so just one fascinating company that I've gotten to know quite well is Walmart. Here was the company that was most criticized of any American company by everybody.
For what it did to communities.
Yeah, and the idea is they were just not benefiting their associates, and they're not benefiting their communities, and they were making a lot of money and growing. But and Walmart, in the course of about 6 or 7 years, has completely transformed itself. And now it arguably is one of the biggest shared value companies, you know, in the world. Of course, it's such a big company that almost nobody's as big as they are. But in terms of their products, in terms of shifting the philosophy towards, you know, how they work with their employees, how they deal with communities, they're in a transformation. And Walmart is vibrant and growing and innovative again. And as I like to say, I think you know, Walmart felt like a dinosaur, but now actually they may become the next new fierce species. I think Amazon and Walmart are now in a very, very interesting and important competition. And you would think that Amazon is just going to wipe out everything, but I don't think so. I think that the merging of the physical and the digital retailing, which is now possible, is actually the superior model going forward. And so what you may have noticed that Amazon is now talking about opening stores. And Walmart has so many more distribution points than Amazon in terms of places to ship from. And so I think we're seeing, so I would just highlight Tesla and Walmart, who seem to be completely opposite in every way. As two companies that I very much admire, that are embarking and taking advantage on the latest thinking, the latest technology at this particular moment.
Okay, in the interest of time, I have two quick last questions. One has to do with the two defining figures, political figures of our time. One is President Donald Trump, what you make of his presidency so far, and how you think of trade and taxes, etc. And the other is what you think of Prime Minister Modi in India here, if you've had a chance to look at some of the work that India has done in the last 3 years of his time.
Well, let's start with President Trump. I think that President Trump's election was a sign of the deep satisfaction that Americans have with their political system. We've been in gridlock for decades. We can't fix our schools. We can't deal with you know, environmental issues. We're stalled on gun violence. Our healthcare system isn't getting any better. We have lots of issues in America, probably more, you know, we probably have more threats, if you will, to the American dream than we've ever had. And yet our political system is just failing to move the ball forward. And I think President Trump's election was a reflection that the trust in our government is at an all-time low, and the candidates that were available to choose were not exciting the public. They just seemed like the same old politicians that haven't gotten us anywhere for so many years. So I think President Trump was an effort on the part of some citizens to kind of clean house and let's come with a total outsider. And unfortunately, I think, you know, nothing really is going to change. President Trump was supposed to be this great guy that was going to change everything. Well, look at what's happened. He's getting nothing done. He's being stalled, blocked by the system, and frankly, he's not equipped. we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that open trade is good for an economy. We know there's so much more known, and President Trump has never done public policy before. He doesn't know how to think about trade. He doesn't know how to think about almost any issue. And he has some good people around him, but we have here a leader who, first and foremost, is very divisive. So in a society where we're already divided, this is making us more divided. And then rather than have a measured, thoughtful, bipartisan discussion about issues and about what we should do as a society, instead of bringing people together, Americans together, around finding that common ground, which is what we desperately need, I think President Trump, has simply not been able to do that, and he's tended to make Americans even more divided and separate than even we were before. So I think I'm hopeful that as he learns how to do this job, which is a complicated job, as he learns that his job is bringing people together, as he learns that he has to be very, very careful about how he talks and what he says, and hopefully he'll learn. He's a bright man. He's been he can be a very good leader, but he's got a lot to learn. And I think what concerns me is that instead of being the healing force that brings our society together, that brings the Republicans and the Democrats and the various constituencies together around finding the common ground, we have, in some ways, even more division in our society. Now, I think Prime Minister Modi, I haven't met. I hope to meet him soon. I am very, very impressed by the direction the country is moving. The data is very clear. Growth is much higher. GDP per capita growth is much higher. A lot of metrics are getting better for India, but India is a really, really complicated economy. It's a really, really challenging society and economy in which to really build competitiveness. I think the government is determined to take on everything and anything that needs to be fixed. I think I commend them for that. But it's going to be a multi-year strategy effort, and I have some thoughts about that I'll share with the Prime Minister. But in general, I think India's on a much better path today than has been. I know there's every president is controversial about something, but I think on the core economic and competitiveness issues that I know well, I would be very strongly supportive of the direction.
Professor Porter, there are always many more questions, but I know you're short of time. Have a good trip in India, and thank you again for speaking to Bloomberg Quint.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Thank you.